But I appreciate being here, and I'm blown away by how many people are here.
Is your mic on?
It is, and it's not, I'm going to project for the room. The mic is for the recording. So if you can't hear me, please let me know, because I can speak louder. I used to teach horseback riding lessons, and I can project so that somebody galloping across the field could hear me. So fortunately, I don't do that anymore. So no galloping here? No. Okay. Yes, I have been an artist, and I knew at an early age that I wanted to be an artist. I was telling somebody last weekend that one of my first really strong memories was in nursery school remember those awful green, those tempera paints? And they have that awful green, and I remember combining it with a little orange to make just the color of my mother's dress, so that I was able to do her portrait. And I remember that as being such an important moment in my life, that figuring out that you are not stuck with those colors coming right out, and that you could match the things that mattered to you, like my mother's classic little dress that she always wore, her favorite. So those were the things that, when I look back at my childhood, and unfortunately I had parents who indulged, encouraged, not with saying, oh, you're going to be an artist, but I remember almost every Saturday going down to Scranton's with my dad for art supplies, and whatever I wanted, he was more than willing to buy that and books. So I always usually got a paperback book, the latest science fiction novel, and then whatever art supplies, whatever projects I needed. So it was a great background and wonderful encouragement. One of my early memories, I don't know if anybody here knows the Irondequoit painter who's no longer with us, Stanley Gordon. Yeah. He used to, that was my first, I was 3 years old and he painted my portrait. And the smell of the turpentine, now it would be, that's not acceptable, but the smell of the turpentine and the magic of having him leave and peek under and to see what he was doing with that painting, I'm sure it was, one of those sparks that you can't put out. And at any rate, I've kept up with it. Sometimes I couldn't make my money as an artist, but I've always managed to live a creative life and paint and exhibit, and I just feel so fortunate. So I appreciate being here tonight and sharing a little of what I do. Originally an abstract painter, did big abstract paintings, showed them around New York State, got really tired of that, and about 2015, I started to do plein air painting. And it just really speaks to me. I love being outside. I love recording the things that I really love and I'm passionate about. Although I'm not a super realist, as you'll see when I demonstrate tonight, I let reality slip by because I think sometimes it's nicer to push it into a nicer direction, whatever it is I'm feeling that day. Colette Savage introduced me to pastels, and I haven't stopped since. It's my second favorite medium after oils, and gouache fits in there perfectly because they are all approaches that are extremely forgiving. So this collection of paintbrushes, which looks very clean, and you can see how this paint roll is clean. These are my watercolor brushes, which that didn't get a lot of service doing watercolors, because watercolor to me is so opposite of oils and needs so much planning to do it well. And what I love is something that's a little more seat of the pants, that I can just go in there, and if I'm making a royal mess, I can cover it up and fix it, or not feel that there's no way out. I love being able to get out of a jam. So yes, so to me, this is a fabulous medium. I teach it, when I teach it, just like oils, I teach it starting with a limited palette so that you don't have to go out and buy 500 tubes. Now you'll see I have quite a collection right here. A lot of these are gifts or people who've stopped painting in gouache and then they want to find a new home for their tubes of paint. I'm more than glad to take it. But tonight when I demo, I'm going to not demo with 50 tubes of paint pulled out. I'm going to try to keep it as minimal as possible because that's the way I would paint out in the field. I am painting on this surface. This is a bigger size. This is brand new. It's a Cottonwood Arts. It's laminated cold press. So what I like, and I'm going to hand around a little piece of it. So and this is sort of dirty already, so don't worry about it. It's hard. It's sturdy, and I don't have to worry about it buckling. I can just paint on it. I can just put it into my easel, and I don't have to put it on another board. It's just nice, straightforward, and simple. The other side is just a mounting board, but it comes like that. It's laminated, yeah.
So the cotton fiber watercolor paper isn't laminated.
It's laminated onto a support, so that it's made in the United States. It is French watercolor paper that has been imported, and they don't tell you what type it is, but that it's, excuse me. I get it from Cottonwood Arts. I'll pass this around too. Yeah, that's a heavy thing. Excuse me, I'm going to cough and I'm going to get some of it. And my students would laugh if I say I'm not used to talking this much because they know I'm a talker. But somehow when you're in a classroom, you don't talk so consistently. You meditate in between and consider what's going on. So again, because of the size, I did print out handouts, but there's only 25 of them. So we're gonna have to do the Hunger Games, and we're gonna put them up here, and everybody's gonna make a mad rush for the table. But if you don't get one, please let.
Sam, can you scan that into the computer and send it out to members?
Excellent. I was gonna say I have a PDF. If you'd like, I could send Sam the PDF. I have Sam's email.
I'll get it from her and add it to the.
Okay. Okay, great. Because some of these things, like I have a portfolio here of gouache paintings that I thought, oh, we're going to be in an intimate little group and people can look at it. Clearly that's not going to happen, but at the end of the session, I'll stick around and you can, I think it'd be hard to hand it around. Yeah. So,
And you've done those plein air?
I will say they're not all done plein air. I'm not exclusively a plein air painter because, hello, we live in Rochester. But I will say I do paint alla prima. And by that I mean I get it in and I get it done. I very rarely, I do have a big painting on my easel now. It's about 24 by 30, and I started it and I blocked it in, and it's not gouache, don't worry, it's oil. And I am going to have to go back and finish it. I might need something. Excuse me.
Would a warm drink be better for you?
I don't know. I think I'm crying now. I'm going to go for the sympathy vote. That's. I'm gonna try to go and see how that goes. So I also did things like this sheet because if you're a painter, whether you're a watercolorist or an oil painter, you know that they often have names for paints that don't have anything to do with, what, you know, King's Blue. What is King's Blue? You know, why is it?
My favorite is ballerina cheeks.
You know, it's like the job where you name the makeup. You know, cherries in the snow. If anybody remembers that. So, one of the first things I do when I get a tube of paint is I will do a test of it, and I put down what the code number is. So this was a Winsor Newton. I started gouache during COVID. Do you remember when Barnes & Noble at RIT went out of business and they had the best sale? Well, I went over there and bought a bunch of gouache. I didn't have any. But they carried the Winsor Newton. So that was my first experience. So some of the early paintings are just with the Winsor Newton and just with a limited palette, very, very limited number of tubes. If you can go down, you'll see the Winsor Newton ones, and you'll know what I started with. Doing these tests, to me, the Winsor Newtons do not have the coverage or the cover that some of the other brands do. So the opacity, thank you. So you'll see, like, the Winsor Newton is called Spectrum Yellow, and it's the yellow pigment 74, which is the same as Winsor Newton's Brilliant Yellow, which does come off as a different color, but it is the same code number. So you can go down and you can see it. I'll pass this around too, just because it's interesting if anybody's a paint nerd and you like to see that sort of thing. I think it's just fascinating to see. And what I do is I do the full strength out of the tube, and then in the corner I put a little bit of white in it so I can see what it will look like when I put a little white in.
The colors with each other.
No, I don't mix the colors with each other, although I left it at home. That is one of the things I do. I'll do color tests, and I'll do, you know, this yellow mixed with that blue, and what sort of green do I get, and, you know, all that sort of stuff, yes, because it's just the sort of thing I love to do. You know, so I will start passing that around too.
Can you step back and show it to the camera?
Oh, sure, let me. How's that? Is that, oh yes. Okay. How's that? Okay. And then I'll also do things like this, which also go like this, and then I'll go like this, and then I'll go like this. And this is, you know, different techniques. So I want to see, you know, that you talk about scumbling or blending or lifting out. And they're just little experiments that I'll do to see how, and you can see most of these were on ultramarine blue, and then I put different colors over them because you get tired of the same thing. And then down here at the bottom, I was just trying 2 different types of India ink, or 2 different types of pens, and what would happen with the gouache interacting with them. So this is the sort of thing, you know, so every day is not a super creative day, but every day I try to do something that will further what I'm doing. So, yes?
Can you tell us the difference between the watercolor paint and gouache paint?
Watercolor is transparent, gouache is opaque. That's why gouache is more forgiving, because it will cover. They're both mixable with water. Now, it's not to say they're not toxic, right? So if you have a cobalt blue, you probably shouldn't eat it, okay? But, you know, and you also should think about, at the end of the day, where you put the water that you've cleaned your brushes with, you know. So I think of that as much as people worry about oil paints, I worry about the water in the water system.
So where do you put your water at the end of the day?
I let it evaporate, so I have little vats of evaporating.
Is there color left in there to use?
There's color left in there to use, but if there's color left in there, or at the very end where I'm getting like, I'm sure I'm going to knock it over and ruin something, I'll take a paper towel, wipe it out, and throw it out, because those pigments are better off in the landfill than they are in the water system. So that's what I try to do. Now, I can't always do that in a classroom situation. And I don't know, you know, I'm probably not going to carry out my water tonight, but that's the ideal situation. So I'm going to just do this for a second so you can see that, and then I'm going to hand that over. And then we look at my notes to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Oh, I'm going to go over a few other materials. Finishing my paintings, and I'm going to show this at the end, hopefully, not on the painting that I'm working on, but on something else, to display them, like here. I frame it and I don't have to put it under glass. I don't have to put it under glass, because originally I used a Krylon spray and then a varnish. But then David Gardner told me that he now just uses cold wax. And so now I just cold wax my paintings.
What else do you use that for? I've not heard of it.
Oh my gosh, we'll do a whole workshop on it. No, you can mix it with your oil paints. You can put other pigments in and paint with it, or you can seal. Yes?
I don't know the difference between gouache and acrylic.
Acrylics, and there are acrylic gouaches. So and I don't use those because they are like acrylics, which means once they dry, they don't reconstitute, right? If your acrylic painting dries, you can throw water on it and nothing's going to happen. If I finish a gouache painting and I spill water on it and it's not sealed, it will run. So that's the real difference. So it is the binder I'm going to pick up, this is M. Graham gouache. The binder in it is actually honey. So, you know, how natural can we get here? The pigments aren't. They have a little warning sign, but yes?
I was just thinking, you made a couple comments about different ways you use the cold wax. Could that be a presentation? Is there enough to talk about?
I think,
Demonstrate with a cold wax?
cold wax is something that would definitely, in a future time, I think it is, and I even know people, does anybody, you probably all know of her, Sally Wood Winslow. She actually seals her pastels with cold wax too. And Colette's shaking her head. Don't do it. Yes?
Is the cold wax a matte or a gloss?
It is a matte, but if you buff it, you can make it a little glossy. So I've had a little trouble. I'm still getting my technique down. They recommend using these little cotton rounds. I went to Wegmans, bought the cotton rounds. I think they flake a little too much. I might have to go and buy a fancier cotton round, or my next step is I'm going to use my husband's old socks and try and see how they work. So, yes?
I've used an old sheet.
Okay, an old, yeah, okay. Yeah, because these were so frustrating. Yes?
Pieces of old blue jeans.
Oh.
I'm a woodworker.
Okay. So I also bring my own water with me. Now, fortunately, you have water here, but you know, I always carry water, especially I do a lot of work plein air. You never know what you're going to end up with. This is a little sweet looking, right? But it is a mister, so if I need to wet something, I have that mister, bottle of water. I have this is a Masterson wet palette. So this is wet here. This I got a little wet. it's the wrong size because I bought it off of Amazon and I didn't check the measurement, but it will work well enough. I can use a paper plate. I'll use whatever I happen to have on hand. It's forgiving enough. I meant to bring, I also have this cute little box that's supposed to, it has a silicone seal on it, and you can put your gouache into it and it keeps them wet because it seals it. So, but it doesn't matter to me if it dries anyway. It's not like but now I'm going to go and paint because that's the whole point of this, and it's going to be fun. So I have a little arrangement over there, and I don't know, were you going to pan to just the little arrangement so they could see? And this is going to be, I'm going to sort of be painting like this off to the side, peering over at my little arrangement. I have,
Do you need more light on?
yeah, I'm trying to think.
Because you can turn the light.
No, I really, I don't know if we could restrict
Oh, that's
that.
back there though. I don't know. Oh, on those. I see what you're saying. Oh, look at that.
Ooh. Wow, that's pretty jazzy. So, yeah, that'll mess me up. Thanks. Okay. So, you know, when I teach, I try to encourage people to plan and do little studies and know where they're going when they start. Tonight, I'm not going to. I'm going to live dangerously and just jump in. I am also, I had thought I was going to do a practice this afternoon of exactly what I was going to paint, so I was going to be well prepared. Today did not go quite as I thought it was going to, so I think it's more interesting to watch somebody on a tightrope, don't you? So I'm going to walk on that tightrope. And, you know, I think that's also, and I'm going to put out some paint while I'm talking, it's also the spirit of being an artist, is that we can't plan for everything. And we can't make everything perfect. And any artist who thinks that they are going to plan everything out and it's just going to go perfectly, they're lying to themselves, right? And I don't know if Bob Ross and his happy accidents are quite what I'm going for, but you know, we know. So I'm putting out some of the Winsor Newton, just because, actually this was Hansa Yellow, because that's one of my favorite, that's one of my standards. It's a good neutral yellow. It's right in the middle. In fact, I was going to put out a warm yellow, but in the spirit of trying to show a limited palette, if I can find my limited palette, probably not. And I'll just put out a little, this is primary red, and, oh, maybe I won't. Okay, I'm gonna just put out, let's see.
Run them under hot water.
Yes, that's a good idea. I think I have enough substitute tubes that I'm going to just find another red.
You want me to try to open it? I got vice grip thumbs.
Which was the one that this is the one. See how that's stuck? I think it's just dried. Yeah, no.
Nope,
Yeah.
that's stuck.
Oh! Well, that's because it's over here. That's the one I wanted. This is Naphthol Red. And so I'm going to put out a little of that. Naphthol Red is so strong that I can just put out a little dab of it. I'm going to put out some ultramarine blue. And I just bought yesterday a palette knife for this very reason, a dedicated palette knife for the gouache. So I'm not using an oil palette knife. And I am going to be just a little, I'm going to use a purple, a diazonine purple, just because I have it. And because I have that little vase there that's turquoise, I'm going to put out a little turquoise. I have it. Why not? It'll get me a little closer. It's a convenience color. Now the vase, just as my first job out of college was as, with no experience, a glazer at a pottery up in Maine. And you airbrushed the glazes on. And I lasted there 2 months until the state closed the pottery down because of the high concentration of lead in the glazes. But Dwight Eisenhower had a set of that pottery. It was very 1950s pottery. So Rowentree's pottery was a beautiful, beautiful stuff from Blue Hill, Maine, all made with local clays and glazes and everything. So I'm going to look at this. Yes?
You had, on your sample chart, you had a little square with this glaze on it. What glaze did you use for that?
That was just, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I used a little, like a rose color, pinky tone over the blue. Just glazed it on. And by glaze, I just meant I made a very loose, watery application over the opaque color. So I'm going to start, I'm going to look through my viewfinder, and I'm going to just start painting. Yeah, I know, it's about time.
No, we've enjoyed this whole process.
So I will need water.
There should be a swell of music here.
I was gonna say a drum roll.
The nice thing is I can, as I said, I can put something down and I know I can cover it. So I'm not, and I could take pencil and I could draw it out. I could do a bunch of different things. And I am going to stand in front of this just for a second so I'm not too oblique looking at it. Because I think I'm going to do some flowers over here, that little paler one. This is going to be a little, let's see if this will balance up here. Probably well enough, right?
Does everybody know what that little frame is that you're using to look at your picture through?
Oh, this is a viewfinder, and it has different proportions. So right now I have 8 by 10, because that's the size here. So I can look, and roughly, it just eliminates some of the background and helps me frame it up a little bit. And you know, I put this down with those little flowers on the bottom. Does anybody know Richard Schmid, the painter? If you wanted to buy his book, it costs about $140 now because it's out of print. But you can get it as a PDF online, and in it he says he never paints flowers in vases. He likes them loose and wild like little children. I always think that's very funny, little children. So I'm gonna do something like that with the purple, and I'm gonna vignette the purple off here, and it's going to be a little seamless purple. So I'm going to actually start by, oops, that was the blue, sorry. So I'm going to start by cutting in some of my background. And I'm going to 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make this a little smaller so I can fit this whole, and the vase is very petite. And I'm just, again, I'm doing the negative space here. I see this yellow. And when I get this roughed in, blocked in like this, I'm going to show it to you. But right now I'm just going to put in some of this.
Did you say you're using cobalt blue now?
No, this is diazonine purple. It's right out of the tube, nothing added to it. I usually wouldn't use it like that, but hey, I've been talking so long. I've got to go for broke here.
Would it be true to say that since you can paint over the gouache, that you're essentially doing your roughing in that you do with a pencil
Yeah.
with the paint?
Yes, I'm just skipping a step. And also because I want this, when I paint, I like it to not be precious or perfect. I like it to have a little energy, maybe a little, I want to say a little sense of danger. You know, I don't want to feel like every step of the way that I know what's happening here.
Too precious.
I think it's so easy to start to believe that what I just drew is so nice. I'm afraid to ruin it, you know. And I want to get over that a little bit. I want to have a little. I put a little white into my purple, just to. Just to, because I'm seeing the bottom part there is, you know, it's just like the grass outside is the lightest thing in the landscape, except for the sky. So, you know, I want to get some of that, just a little feeling that the light is coming down on that flower, on that plant, on the table surface. And if you look, I had brought some yellow paper, if you could see it underneath there, and I was thinking of doing a very subtle, like yellow daffodils on yellow paper and doing something like that. I thought it'd be really pretty, but it was really boring. So I went for the complementary colors here, and then that little dash of, so right now, you know, I have this really, I mean, it's really rough, it's really roughed in, but I know where I'm going to go with this. Now, oh, sorry. Okay, so now, you know, I'm getting a feel, and
Is that board that you're working on like the white one that you sent around?
yes, exactly. So I'm working on the slightly textured size. The other side is the smooth laminated board. It's like a crescent board, I think.
And somebody else had asked back here, is the wrapped package that you sent around, is that the board?
It is. The only thing is that was a 9x12 package, and this is an 8x10. But it's precisely the same thing. When I went to Cottonwood Arts, I actually bought, they had this like a painter's bundle, and they had 9x12, 8x10, all these little 5x7s, 5x7s with squares, and it all came to $70. I mean, it went on and on and on, and I was like, how could I not get this? And it wasn't like one sheet, it was like 10 sheets in each of them. And it was, so I got, you know, square cornered, round corners, 9x12s. It was, of course, that's the sort of thing that, you know, any artist is going to love, a bundle. I'm saving money, I'm sure. So. But you know, the 8x12s, I mean, the 8x10s are almost gone. The 6x6, you'll see, was that you go through, I have a lot of the 6x6. The 5x7s are wonderful. They're like little postcards. You know, they're just wonderful little studies, or 4 little studies. So I'm going to actually use my palette knife like I should for mixing some colors. That helps me keep my colors a little cleaner. So I just took the turquoise right out of the tube, added some white, and now I'm dulling it, because that really is with a little of the purple. I used a little of the diazonine purple to dull this was the turquoise and white, and then with a little bit of purple in there. Oh, I thought you were telling me. Yeah. So I'm going to just rough in where this vase is going to be. I'm not worried about the precise shape because I know I can fix it.
Is your background dry already?
No. No, it's not. It's dry enough. And anybody here an oil painter? You know, so you go fat over lean. Well, to me, you do that with pastels too. So you start thin and then you get thicker. Here, I mean, I sort of had a little water in there. Actually, that over here is dry. You know, it is dry enough to work it. But if I come over any of this with something that's thick, I'll be able to cover it, even the wet stuff. So again, I'm just trying to get some of that, and I really don't like the shape of that I made that. So I am going to go and try to fix that already. At least get a little closer to what was there. And that shadow. Oh, thank you. And now I'm going to I need some of those yellows in there for the daffodils because my goal is always, as quickly as possible, to cover the white so that I don't have that annoying white canvas or paper there. So I'm mixing just a little warmer yellow than this lemony yellow here. Ooh, and I just got too much. See, that naphthol red is so strong that just getting a little on my knife made a lot of orange. But I'll use it. So just like in oil paints where I would look at the average of a color and I would try to paint the darkest color that I see for a shape, I'm going to come in here and paint a fairly dark, not the lightest color, not the highlights yet, but I'm just going to block in. And even with the pretty little pale, actually I should do those, I'm going to go right down and use the same yellow for the ones that are lying down here. So I know I have the two dark ones and then some of these little frilly yellow ones that are like this. Has a great shape to that one.
Did you put the highlight on the vase deliberately? No, that's white.
In the middle.
That is white that hasn't been. Yes, I see that it is. No, it was not deliberate. And to be continued is right. So, and you can see I've already, forgotten that my goal to use palette knife. Yeah, that just went out the window. So these poor daffodils are looking pretty sad. They're really they have, since we came, they've wilted tremendously. They were yesterday I bought them $2.50 at Wegmans, great deal, for 5. I forget how many, but I bought a bunch of them, so I might have to trade them out because these are dying fast. So I'm just going to get some of these green shapes in there, and I'm going to see where, as I go, and I've kept, if you notice, I put the paints that I'm actually using in my lid so that then I don't have to go back and search for that naphthol red and pick up the red that doesn't open by mistake. And so now I'm going to try to take this a little closer. So I'm going to stand, at this point I'm going to just show it to you so you can see it's very roughed in. It's very, and I'll hold it up to the camera. Thank you.
You can go a little closer.
It takes a village to do a production like this. Oh, for a minute? Okay. So, you know, my goal here is to, now you see there is still some white on the canvas here, on the edges of the green. But I know I can cut in more carefully and more precisely. But I know that I'm going to have some purple areas. I probably am not going to keep all this purple. To me, it's a little bit too much. And I'm looking at some of the colors in the background that are there, but I might mix up something. I don't know. You know, this is why you're supposed to do the dress rehearsal the afternoon, so I know exactly where I'm going.
This is way more fun. This is much
But-
more instructional almost to see.
So,
Solving problems.
well, you know, that's what it's all about, is that I did a demo for Penfield. I got called the night before. They needed somebody. And what I did was I brought my paints and I let the audience pick a yellow, a red, and a blue, and I painted with it. And it was scary. But you know what? It also was really fun and it worked. I tried the same thing with Pittsford, and they picked the 3 wrong colors, and it was, but you know, everybody learned something there too, that the color choices are important, and sometimes you can't pull it off. You know, we can't always make a perfect painting. And if you have, I'd love to meet you. Okay, so I'm going to gray some of this in the background so it's not quite, so I actually took the turquoise and I mixed it with some of the purple so that it's getting, first I'm trying to get those color harmonies by not having such disparate colors, and try to make them work. I do like that really dark purple, even though it's not, the value is very different than what I see there. I really love how dramatic it makes those daffodils look. So I'm going to cut around those daffodils a little more carefully with some of this purple. So, and that might stay. Some of that brushwork might stay to the very end. I probably should have a stem on that guy. And I'm going to have to fix that. But as I said, I can fix it. I can go and I can put that yellow right back. Now, if it's not going to have as luminous a quality as the yellow on white, but it's still going to work. So those are things that I like. I know I can get away with all sorts of things, and I can change my mind. I could be working on this, and I could say, you know, I don't know if I really like this purple background. Maybe I'm going to switch it to green, and I could do it, and you know, so it's really fun to see.
Well, it's wet, or can you go back tomorrow and do it?
I wouldn't wait till tomorrow because I'm not patient enough to wait till tomorrow.
Get interrupted, I just wondered.
Well, you could. No, you know, I'm trying to look, you know, here's an example. You know, this is done in an hour and a half at an open studio session. And, you know, and it all started with one solid blue in the background.
I want to show the,
Oh. So, one solid blue, it started, and by the end of the hour and a half, it was all that stuff happening. So So yes, it did dry a little bit. And also, it wasn't like I went from orange to green. That might be a little tricky. But. So I'm going to stand in front of this for a second and try to get a straight-on view.
Is the advantage of gouache over acrylic the blending ability?
The fact that I can reconstitute it. So, for example, I can't really, I'll show you later on. If you look at the piece that I sent around, I can actually like wet an area and then lift it off after it's, you'll see here, I have a painting of Japanese turnips, and I used bounty paper towel patterning to give an overall patterning. Today I do not have bounty, but you know, it is a wonderful, it lifts some of the color off, or you can push some color in by using different, which you can do it with acrylic, but you can't lift the color unless it's wet. But, so I'm gonna try to go back here and now, some of my paint on my palette is getting a little, and if I were smart, I'd be misting it. I also, which I left at home, I have something that's called Winsor & Newton Blending Medium. And it is a watercolor artist's trick to keep the watercolor open longer. So you can put a drop of it on your gouache, and it keeps it open a little longer. So, and by open, I mean wet. Okay, so it just is, it's a handy little trick. Ooh, that was the wrong, I see, I forgot what I had put on my, as I'm talking to you. That was dangerous.
It's a reflection. Yeah, it looks like a reflection.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and then I just blotted it off with my fingers, and it worked just fine. I just didn't want it quite that strong as what I had put down originally.
What size brush are you using?
I am using a number 8. This is a Simply Simmons brush. It's just, I saw a demo Sunday, and somebody was saying that you're supposed to use a brush. This is to be bold and free. You're supposed to use a brush that's 1/8 the width of your canvas. So if it's an 8-inch canvas, you're supposed to use a 1-inch brush. That, I mean, that would be very bold, right? Think about it. But, so I'm not following that exactly. But you notice, I mean, and I could probably do the whole painting with this brush because it does have a little point. Very often I'll block in with flats and do big flat areas. But this happened to be the one I picked up tonight, and it feels good. And so far, I've been able to improvise it with it. Let's see. So I'm going to come in here and get some of these stems a little more careful. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm going to finish this painting because there's some things I want to show you along the way too. One of them is using the cold wax and sealing a painting. So I do want to make sure I leave a little time for that. I don't need a lot of time for that, but I do need some. I'm just having fun right now. You might notice that. I'm taking my yellow And I'm starting to just do some calligraphy off on the side here to weave some of the yellow. It's like a pastel painter where they pick colors that are used elsewhere in their painting and they weave it into other places, maybe unexpected places, but just to just jazz things up a little bit. Oh, this is going to have to get very clean here.
And you use so little water that you don't worry about the paints that are in it. You don't worry about
Oh,
having
as
clean
far
water
as,
all the time.
no, and see, if I'm enough of an oil painter, you know, I dip in the water, I don't do, and then I clean it off on my paper towel. That's the way I've learned as an oil painter, so I'm not wasting a lot of Gamsol or paint thinner. And for years, yes.
When you're done.
Oh, I go ahead. Oh, so it's the same idea that this is a nasty paper towel here that I keep cleaning things off on.
What do you clean your brushes, how do you clean your brushes with the gouache?
It's just soap and water.
Soap and water?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm trying to keep them fairly clean as I go. Little tips, you know, don't get the paint into the ferrules. When you wash them and clean them, don't put them back in your brush holder. Put them flat and let them dry flat. Things like that. I mean, you will find those in a lot of how-to. Ooh.
Hey, Mark, could you tell everybody where they can find this later, because a lot of folks won't know.
Yeah, I do have a shadow there. So I don't know, do you talk to yourself when you paint? I remind myself, I just said, I do have a shadow there. And it wasn't that I was, you know, it was like not like some, I just realized, oh, don't forget that. And sometimes I'll, you know, give myself little like pep talk. You can do it. Don't forget the shadow. So, I mean, it's nice because I can go back and forth. So I put a shadow in, and now I can go and I can add a little highlight. And I can do that push and pull. You can't do that with watercolor. Once you make that commitment of a dark in watercolor, you're not going to put a light over it. It's not going to happen. So, you know, this frees me up. I can refine. I can work in a way that I feel comfortable with, which is, you know, with my background in in oils and pastels. This is a very familiar work process. It's not like I had to learn something. It's, yes, I have to learn something new, but you know, I know how to. I know color mixing from the oils. This work process of dark to light is also something that works with pastels. So it's. Can you tell that I was an abstract painter? And that for years I would just paint like colors and shapes, and I just love things like brushwork and the way a color interacts, or just the feeling of how I feel when I'm doing some of this calligraphy. It's a wonderful feeling, and my goal is hopefully that at the end, when somebody looks at it, they're excited by the calligraphy too. You know, it's not, I mean, who really cares about little daffodils in a dinky little vase? But it's really not, but it, you know, so I'm trying to make it into something that's a little more exciting. Right, and
When you say calligraphy, you're talking about this brush stroke, right?
yes, and the brush stroke, and I'm going to actually show that, you know, the thick and thin, it's brushwork that, right, I don't see brushwork back there, but it's, to me, it adds energy, it adds verve, if that's, you know, if I dare say that. It makes it a little bit more fun.
But it's your style.
Yeah, I guess so. But you know, my style has, you know, hopefully I have a little range of it, but I do like things a little active, a little energetic. So we're good. It's pretty, you know. I'm going to just add some darker, but this is a nice little study. It doesn't have to, I don't have to get it, so this is finished. I'm not going to frame this piece, but I like, we can auction it off. I would sell it, if I sold this painting, the funds would go to your art club. How's that? But see, to me, this is, you know, it is just so much fun to share something like this. And I'm going to just.
Do you paint every day often?
I don't paint every day. But like, if I'm not painting, I'm illustrating a children's book or illustrating something that I think might inspire me to, like, I love pen and ink. And that was my first love as a high school student, was doing, you know, dip pen, and, you know, I wanted to be Aubrey Beardsley. And I missed that one. But, you know, I will go back to things like that. I will go back to, some days it's making those charts, because because I teach. So some days I don't have a lot of time and I have a horse. And if anybody who has a horse knows, it's very time consuming. So I'm going to look at that. I'm going to put just a little. So now my that yellow here. I'm going to put some.
You always paint on an easel.
9 out of 10 times I do. I like standing up. This table is sort of makes it hard, and this setup, but I usually like to get away, far, far away from my work, so I can see what's happening. So I'll paint a little, and then I'll stand back. I'll paint a little, then I'll stand back. But this situation, it just is a little cramped for that. Let's see. I think I need just a little more light in there. And especially since, you know, that little, this little bit of light sort of blocks, it seems like it goes like that. And I just want to, I see some of the shape there coming down. But I do want to get away, so I'm going to stand back a little and see where I am. One of the things I have a tendency to do, if you look, is even if I set up a landscape, still life with a very clear line, I'll find I end up doing this sort of thing where I vignette it and just have almost like a seamless backdrop, just because I find, you know, too geometrical sometimes is a little static, and I like feeling like these daffodils are in some space that's really mysterious, as opposed to just a counter with a light on them. So I wanted to add a little, I like adding a little more mystery in. Now this, I'm going to just blot that. So I just put something really wet on top of something really dry for the sake of getting something like this. Is that too close? Okay, so that you see a little bit of this accidental edging, and it makes it really interesting. And could I duplicate it very carefully? No. I could not very carefully make that line. I have to sort of just put it down and then let it be. And whatever it was, I could cover it if I didn't like it, but I'm not going to ever be able to duplicate it in a careful sort of way. But it's a sort of little touch that makes the gouache fun. And I could, you know, there's a point where, like, now, to me, this is far enough. So I'm not going to take it any further. If it was a piece that I was doing and I really wanted to be super careful, I would take more time, and I also wouldn't be talking. but so I'm going to show you. Here's a gouache that I did last weekend, and it's dry. And I'm going to just show you how easy it is to wax it. Because this, to me, unfortunately, I just have the makeup pads because I don't have an old pair of socks with me. But this will work well enough, and unless somebody has old socks with them. No. So you can see the wax is like this, and this happens to be Dorland's wax medium. I'm sure there's many, many types. And I'm just going to take one of these little makeup pads. The problem is, this side is an exfoliating side, and and this side is really, so I'm going to put it on, and you can see I have a big dollop. Yeah, I'm going to put it.
Some of those tabs are not as fuzzy. They have like a smooth finish.
Like a gauze pad?
No,
Maybe
not
before you
really.
smear it all, you hold that up to the camera.
Yeah.
So she's got it on pretty
So I'm
lower. Yeah, that's good.
so you can see it. So I'm just smearing it on. It's a fairly good, and if, okay, see this?
Got a fuzzy lemon.
question.
I've been doing it for years.
Have you?
It's like putting on face cream.
It sort of feels like putting on face cream.
It'll work.
A 5-year-old would do.
See, this is what I love about something like this is, and every time I teach a class, I end up learning so much. And it is just it's a wonderful community, you know, that artists are so generous and they share what they know and they share about their makeup pads and, and their fingers. So, I mean, you could see. This did not pick up any paint. I have actually done it where like a little bit, like you could see it on the makeup pad, but if you look very carefully, and I'll show, you could see just a hint of a little.
That's what I wondered. You said earlier something about putting a pale pink watery glaze over something. Doesn't it then activate the paint underneath before it turns it on?
It really, well, you could see it probably would if you let it sit long enough or if you worked it. But by just putting it on quickly, it doesn't. It doesn't activate it enough. You're painting, I put a paint on it. So now this is thick and it's, I mean, it's,
How long does it take to dry?
it will be tomorrow. I can buff it. And it will buff to a nice shine. So I don't know how I'm going to get it home. But pardon?
Watercolors for using this as well.
Right, watercolors. So this is where I learned it from David Gardner, who is a plein air painter and a watercolor artist. And he doesn't do this exclusively, but a lot of his paintings, he just uses the cold wax. And
So he doesn't put it behind a mat or glass, is what you're saying?
right, when he uses the cold wax, he doesn't mat or put it in glass. He just had a show at what's it, 1570 Gallery? What do you call it? The 5070. And he had half of his paintings were under glass and matted and half weren't. It just happened to be, I asked him what the rhyme or reason. He said, oh, if I don't have a mat, I just don't do it. He wasn't like it was, you know, because he was using a lot of, you know, if you reuse your old ones. So I'm sure he has a collection of old ones that he redoes. Yes?
The buffing, which you can't demonstrate.
Soft cloth.
Soft cloth.
Yeah, right. It's just, and it will come up to. I mean, I'll just take one of these and. This is a very different style. This is mixed media. Well, that's not very shiny, is it? But I guess it's not a very good choice. But you can look through these afterwards, and you can see. But the operative thing is because. Well, I'll use this one because I know it has wax on it. I could take water, and I know it's not going to hurt it. It's just going to come right off of it. So it will protect it. Yes?
When you were talking about the watercolor artist, what did the watercolor artist paint on? Is it on watercolor board?
Watercolor paper that he mounted to board. So a lot of his paintings look like they're presented in a manner, they look like a canvas. He can put it under with just a frame, or just like this one. I mean, this is not I have not like done the formal framing, but I just stuck it in a frame. But you know, again, I could take the spray and I could spray it, or I could cry on it, or whatever is going to happen, and it's not going to hurt it. This was before I got into the wax. This has using a couple of coats of like a Krylon spray and then a varnish over it. So, but which took a lot longer. This wax is, I mean, you saw how fast that is. So he was at a plein air festival and he could do a watercolor wax it, hang it on the wall right there. I mean, that saves him all the framing and all the, yeah. Yes?
The other thing is the acrylic sprays and the varnishes, they have a very heavy toxic and very
And you can't do them indoors. You have to wait outside. So you know, half the winter you're waiting to spray your things. Yes?
Have you ever mounted your paper to like a wood panel?
I have not.
Painting on paper?
I have never mounted. Now, you mean like plywood or?
It's like the cradled wood panels.
I haven't, but you could. You know, I would.
I know you can, and
I
I've seen it demonstrated, but
I would definitely. I mean, anytime I do something like that, I try to plan it in advance and do it before I paint it. You know, so that you're not messing around with it afterwards. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to put the lid on this. I mean, this is cold. This is wax medium, and it will be on my list. Do I have it as at name? No, I don't. Yes, definitely. So there are other brands. Gamblin makes a wax medium. This is just the one that David Gardner recommended, so that's the one I ended up buying because I figured he knew what he was talking about. So, and I you know, like all of us in a community, we depend on the experts. And, you know, I saw what he was doing. I was fascinated that he didn't show his water mediums under glass, and how did he do it. So this weekend at Main Street Arts, I have 2 little gouaches that are going to be in the totality show. They're cold waxed and no glass over them, and it makes me so happy. You know, they're so light, they're so easy to transport. I don't have to worry about the glass. You know, you don't get the reflection. That's really problematic.
and like with your brushwork, your calligraphy as you call it, once you put glass on top of it, you lose a whole lot of it.
You really do. And, you know, that's, I mean, it's a frustrating part to me about pastels, which I love, and I love doing them, but I wish I could just, poof, you know, somehow preserve them so I wouldn't have to have, because also it makes it so much less immediate for the viewer to have that sheet of glass. And do you have the glare of regular glass, or do you buy the glass that doesn't have a glare that then changes the color? It's just, it's one of those conundrums that's, you know. Well, you know, it's, you know, and oils are nice too because of that, but then they take forever to dry. Well, not forever, you know, a good week.
You have waxed pastels or not?
I have not.
But you know if it's being done.
I know. Colette's shaking her head. Yes, it does change the look of them. I think, again, the person did like a coat of some sort of fixative. You have to have enough fixative that it preserves it. And I have tried it with pastels, putting the fixative on and then using a varnish. And I've had success once. And it actually looked pretty good. You know, and I can lick my fingers and I can rub it all over that painting and it's fine. And it didn't shift the colors that much. But that was one out of maybe a dozen experiments. So I don't think that's a very good success rate. If anybody has to go, please, because I know this is, but there is, this book here has some wax on this, yeah. Oh, I wonder. Yes, that's a great idea.
Thank you